You know, it's a story we hear a lot in the tech world. Someone with decades of experience, a true veteran, decides to get a new certification and hits a wall. Hard. We're talking about a senior IT architect with over 20 years in the field who failed the Azure AZ-104 exam 3 times. It took them a full year to finally pass on the fourth try.
Right. It's such a powerful reminder that deep, hands-on experience doesn't automatically translate to exam success. There's a huge difference between knowing how to do the job and knowing how to pass the test. The demands of certification, testing, time management, pressure, the specific way questions are worded, that's a completely different skill set.
So, what was the critical difference between those 3 failures and the final success? What specific change in approach finally unlocked that barrier for them?
Well, the biggest shift was moving away from just theoretical study and into intense simulated exam practice. The author realized their technical gaps were less of an issue than their ability to perform under the pressure of a ticking clock. That's something you can only replicate with paid practice tests, and by enforcing strict exam conditions on yourself, it really shows that for many of these certs, mastering the exam itself is just as crucial as mastering the subject matter.
Absolutely. It's a stark lesson on the importance of simulation and strategic practice. So, let's dive into the specific breakdown of those early attempts and what exactly went wrong to build up to that crucial turning point.
It's a classic story of hubris, really.
Initially, the author approached the AZ-104 with a lot of confidence because of their prior Azure exposure, but that led to a failure on the first attempt. They ran out of time and completely underestimated key areas like virtual networking and access control. The second attempt was better, but still not enough. And the third, which they paid for out of pocket, was a devastating near miss. They failed by just 2%.
Ouch. Those early failures really underscore a common pitfall. You assume your years of experience will carry you through, but you neglect the specific exam preparation. Each test has its own rhythm and its own favorite topics. The author's story highlights that you have to master question comprehension speed and get really deep into the specific technical areas the exam focuses on, like networking and identity management.
That third attempt, missing by just 2%, that must have been incredibly disheartening. What was the introspection process like during the break that followed? And what specific realization led to the dramatic shift in strategy for the fourth attempt?
That's where the real learning happened.
So the turning point came after a break. The author identified that what was lacking was exam simulation skill, not necessarily knowledge. They then invested in paid practice tests and completed over 15 full-length mock exams, meticulously analyzing every single answer right and wrong and creating their own personal notes. This is what finally led to consistent high scores in practice and, ultimately, a successful fourth attempt.
This is the core lesson right here. Simulated practice is paramount. It's not just about knowing the material. It's about training your brain to recall and apply that knowledge efficiently and accurately under exam conditions. That's a skill that only disciplined, repeated practice can build.
So, you're saying that even with a Microsoft Azure subscription for hands-on labs, the real breakthrough came from those paid practice tests that mimicked the exam environment so closely?
Exactly. The author's own notes highlight this. While the hands-on labs are great for building that foundational understanding of how Azure services work, the paid practice tests were what built the critical skills. They developed the time management, that internal clock for, say, reading, understanding, and marking a question within 90 seconds, and they built the ability to analyze complex scenarios under pressure. It's all about bridging the gap between knowing Azure and knowing how to prove you know it within the exam's tight constraints.
That's a crucial distinction. The focus on simulating the exam experience itself was the key. Now, looking back at this entire journey, what are the absolute top takeaways for anyone else preparing for the AZ-104 or any similar certification?
I think there are a few really powerful ones. First, you absolutely cannot skip practice, both hands-on labs and, more importantly, simulated exams. Second, you have to treat time management as a skill to be trained. It won't just happen. Third, review your mock tests like a post-mortem. Don't just check answers. You have to understand the why behind every single option, correct and incorrect. And finally, make your own notes. The act of writing, revising, and revisiting your own summaries is far more powerful than any PDF you can download. It's about persistence. Those failures aren't endpoints, they're data points that make you stronger for the next attempt.